Between artists with and without perceived disabilities. Exploring the process of making fine art has led Patty and Robert to investigate sewing, woodworking, painting, sculpture, repurposed materials, and innovative approaches. The collaborations are often site-specific public artworks that encourage conversation, awareness, and add beauty to the larger community. Product lines designed through the artwork deliver employment opportunities and funding streams for continued arts programming. These two consult through Norwich Consulting Services, working with organizations wanting to explore collaborative arts programming or advance the work of established studios. As an artist in residence, Patty started Passion Work Studio in Athens, Ohio, and developed a collaborative art-making approach. She has shared this approach internationally with organizations serving people with developmental disabilities in Chile, Kosovo, Thailand, and the United States. Passion Work Studio has had over $1 million in sales, established a community art gallery, store and studio, and has become a model for encouraging similar programming. Patty has received a Distinguished Alumna Award from Ohio University's College of Fine Art, Ohio Anna Citation for Art and Education, Individual Artist Award from the Ohio Arts Council, Citizen of the Year from Civitan, and the Keystone Award from Ohio University for Outstanding Community Service. She received her BFA and MFA from Ohio University's Fine Art Photography program. Robert received his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and minor in Mathematics from the University of Colorado, Denver. With 20 years experience as a plumber and 5 years as the on-site engineer during construction of professional baseball parks, his construction skills and understanding of materials support large-scale and well-designed projects. Please assist me in welcoming Patty Mitchell and Robert Lockheed to the stage.
Well, good morning. We are so happy to be here in Alaska, and again, we just love coming up here from Ohio. And having the opportunity to share the brilliance of the people that we serve is my pleasure. So we're very happy to be here. One of the things, I'd like to share the backstory of how we came to be artists in residence and why we focus on the community of people living and experiencing developmental disabilities. When I was a sophomore at Ohio University, I was volunteering at the local mental health center. And they had a program where they invited students in exchange for room and board to live on board and do programming. So I thought that would be a great thing. I was working quite a bit, playing volleyball and different things with people. And so I lived on ward, and my ward was locked men's. I was 17, I was 18. And anyway, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Believe me, I had no idea. But what I did is, whatever I was learning in school, at the university, I brought up onto the ward and we started making art. And it was so profound. The individuals were speaking. Some guys who just didn't talk started talking. Depression was lifted. We really connected just by drawing together and making things. And I thought, and my friend Anne, she was doing theater projects, writing plays and doing performances. And people were happy and responsive. It's like, if it's this easy, we can concentrate on making community studios where the people on the outside of community become the center and the force of the creative process. So that's where this nugget began. And then I was working heavily with folks with mental illness, and then learned about sheltered workshops, which is a different kind of program in the lower 48. They have factory-style kinds of workshops where people do light assembly work. And when I came into this environment, I saw an art studio. I didn't see a factory. I saw kind of an art factory. And I thought, well, this would be great. I don't have to find a building. I don't have to raise a lot of money. I can just sort of be a barnacle on the boat that already exists. And learned that these places really wanted more engaging experiences for individuals and more community participation. So received a grant to do a project, and we did community workshops, and we just made paper mache sculpture. And we ended up making 100 papier-mâché birds with our community. And as we started this project, it was just unbelievable how it unfolded and how people came forward and wanted to participate. They wanted to donate materials, time. The university gallery said, sure, come on up and show up here. Like, that would be fine. Like, all these things started opening for us, for people who were just excluded, typically, from average workings of our community. So I was like, okay, let's do this again. And so we had community workshops again the next year. We had a 10-week grant. And professors, lawyers, all different kinds of people came together, and we made stuff out of newspaper and tape, right? We talked about projects and we built together. And then we built this installation that had 250 flying objects, and it was a celebration of my friend had just had a baby with Down syndrome, and it was basically a celebration of this new little life into our community. And I just thought, I'm so happy. They had a picnic on the floor, and it was this celebration, and their family came and experienced this installation, and I was just like, making things pretty is so much fun. And I thought that was like kind of like the end of it, like that was enough. And my friend Ro was teaching comparative arts at Ohio University, and she had her students come up and write a response paper to this piece. And one of the students didn't really write about the art, he wrote about his own memory of when he was a child, he and his neighborhood friends would beat up a neighborhood kid who had a disability. And he wrote about his regret and about the beauty that was in the room and how he was probably more alike to that child than he realized, thought he was different. And so in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about making things pretty, this was about changing perspective and creating opportunity for people, for everyone to be part of their community. So it became a mission and an obsession to get this out there. Because if we could do that with newspaper and tape, imagine if we started like, I don't know, I didn't know what was possible. So we had the show, and Ed Fisher, who's a restaurateur in Athens, Ohio, where we live, he demanded that the project be installed in his restaurant. And so I was like, dude, I don't know, man, this thing is huge. And so he demanded it, and we pushed the sculpture literally through the doorway, and it expanded and it came out, and he hung all the birds and the things from the ceiling. I'm hanging them high, and he's like, hang them low, it's just paper. So his restaurant, his customers had to come in and bend down, and like, so it was this experience when people came in. And then he said, you know, I think we could sell these things. And I'm like, oh, it's too sacred, we can't sell these things. And he talked me into it, and he would stand on the tables and cut down the things and present the art to the customers who bought them. And then he made adoption certificates, and he sold the pieces, but they stayed in the restaurant. This guy's a genius. Well, then there was hardly anything in the restaurant. He's like, we need more stuff. So when we had another grant, we were like, okay, we'll make more stuff for the restaurant. So we made more stuff, it sold, it made money, we used that money to make more art, and then it created this business model of supply and demand. We made this little biosphere. And so my point was, well, let's just make a product, and we'll always be busy at the workshop, and it'll be fun. We'll make cool stuff. So the artwork became valuable because we valued it. And it was presented in a way of just complete celebration. And it wasn't leading with developmentally disabled business first, it was leading with beauty and spirit and talent. So at the workshop, we did a lot of drawing. And it's the first thing that Robert and I do is we sit down and we just draw with people. And it eases conversation, and we get an insight as to what people's interests are. And my friend Carolyn started drawing flowers. And every time she would draw a flower, she would look at me like, look at this. Look at this. It's just things showed up on my piece of paper. I'm like, I know, it's gorgeous. And she's been making flowers for 16 years now. It's what she does, right? And I love her spirit, and I can depend on her to make these flowers. So I wanted to celebrate her vision. And one of the employees at the Sheltered Workshop's husband worked at the newspaper, and she brought in a stack of printing plates. And And printing plates are aluminum sheets that you use in the printing process, and it's a photographic process, so once they're used, they're done. They become scrap, they become something else. So they sat on the shelf for about 3 months because I didn't really know how we would utilize them, and I didn't understand the material, and they sat there. And then we ran out of stuff, so we started painting them. And we thought about using them as canvases instead of buying canvases, just using these pieces of metal. And so we're exploring this material. And that's, as artists, that's what we do. We explore materials, and basically we're responding to ideas and stuff. And we're remixing and revamping all the time. So the artists make beautiful details and painting with the pieces. And then we enlarged Carolyn's flower designs and cut them out of the metal with scissors. So it turns out you can use scissors, and it sharpens your scissors as you go. Tip. And we had these beautiful petal shapes. Well, my friend Kate Kern said, she was showing us paper sculpture, and you just, see that little slit at the bottom? You just turn that in and you make a dart, and you turn a 2D object into a 3D object. She showed me that. I honestly, in that moment, I almost wept. I was like, it's so simple. We can make paper art and turn it into sculpture. That's brilliant. So we started doing that, making a dart and screwing it into a little piece of wood and making this into a 3D flower sculpture, Carolyn's flower. This is JT, and he came in, and the staff was telling me that they rarely saw him smile, and it was the power tools that really got him excited, which is universal. Absolutely. So we started experimenting and making 4-foot flowers. They're absolutely gigantic, absolutely so silly that it was, a joy. And we had a show at a local restaurant, and we had these giant flowers, and we sold all of them. And I was like, I love making money. I think it is so much fun. And yeah, and then people buy this stuff, they put it in their homes, and then they tell your story. And it's such an organic way to market the genius of the people that we serve. So as we began to do this, demand increased and increased and increased, and then people wanted us to ship these things. And so then our design responded to the limitations of UPS, because we live in a realistic society too, and so then this is what the flowers look like today. And there's Carolyn's flower, painted on the petal. So it's broken down into jobs, so every element that is broken down is a paid work. And if somebody their natural inclination would be to write about Smokey Robinson, then that could be their job. They can write about Smokey Robinson onto that petal. And that actually is an artist who participates in this flower making. So to date, over 21,000 of these flowers have been sold. And it's just exciting to me that that they've been taken and they've been loved by so many people. And so these are the different jobs. Jobs have been created for people with and without developmental disabilities. So we're creating employment opportunities for many different populations within our community. And they've been sold here in Alaska. This was my first beginnings to understand, you guys, that we would get orders from Half Moon Gallery for 25 flowers. Who are these people? And they're like, oh, we love these flowers, they're great, and so I've always wanted to come here to meet this studio and this gallery. So they're now in Palmer. If you go to Palmer, the picture that's blue, they designed the back of their cash register area for the flowers. That's kind of cool. And so when you make something, you put it out in the world, you also give the opportunity for other people to respond and make things available for their own visions. This is I did a presentation at Ohio University for their residence life, for the people who are the students who are the head person in the dorm kind of thing for their floor. And I walked in, and then they started parading in, and everybody in the audience was wearing a t-shirt with a flower on it. Because they adopted the flower and passion as their theme for that year. And then all the dorms, there's 19,000 students at Ohio University, and they made it their mission to support the studio that year, with volunteering, with getting the word out, So we had an army of friends. And then it creates a lot of opportunity for volunteers to come in and really be productive. This group was so thrilled to clean, because the metal comes in and it's all inky and it's kind of gross. And I couldn't pay anybody to clean it within the sheltered workshop. But these volunteers, they needed hours. They needed hours for their service club. And so every Wednesday, they'd put the music on, go outside, they'd just clean up. I'm like, fantastic. They were thrilled, I was thrilled. And then these young people can come in and work with folks with developmental disabilities side by side. It's very fluid and beautiful, and they get credit, and the stuff gets made. So Athens, Ohio, in southeastern Ohio, very close to West Virginia. We live in Appalachia, and we're one of the most challenged counties economically in the state of Ohio. And we've managed to sell over $1 million worth of product. And, I've always wanted to get to that $1 million mark. It just sounds so good, So it's like, it's $1 million in sales. It's not profit, but it's still, it's cool. And it's the magic of UPS and the internet, and then our really supportive community. So it's a very small town, and we went to our mayor and said, do we have an official flower for our community? And he said no, and was like, well, could this be it? He's like, I don't see why not, what the heck? So, if you ask for stuff, and you do it in a way that you're solving somebody else's problem, you wouldn't believe what happens and doors that open. So my friend Todd Jacobs made the logo, and so whatever you want to do, make a logo. It's really funny how that also really propels you forward. And so now this logo is on city maps, it's on the web page, it's all over the place. Okay, so it's the official flower. And once that happened, the news came down, radio, television, it was just crazy. And it was all over the airways. And our town is represented by a piece of art, and that's cool. And this doesn't say disability. This says art and creativity and being alive. And I think that's just great, that our guys are being represented by their spirit. And so going along our way, there was a Rotary member came into the studio and said, would you help us design a fountain in celebration of the 100-year anniversary of the Rotary Club? And I just sort of held on to something. I was like, I've always wanted to do a fountain. I don't know, it's just in the back of my head. But who comes into a sheltered workshop and says, hey, would you guys design a piece of public art and one that has water? That's crazy, right? So we went to some meetings and they said, whatever you do, we really would like the flower to be the centerpiece of the fountain. So we're like, oh, that's cool. And so we did a drawing, and then they built it. And the history of the Rotary is illustrated around the fountain in these pieces. And Harry Grimm is one of the major artists on this piece. And he is just a lovely, brilliant man who is concerned about his community and the world, and is not afraid to do something about what he cares about. So, and before he was in the studio, he had been employed for 20 years building pens and capping pens. And to know his brilliance and to know his insight and care, I just wonder, I didn't want to waste another minute. I wanted to get as much out of him as possible. And so his different opportunities created a different kind of life for him. And so when he became part of the studio, and at his height in the studio, he retired himself from the pen department. Yeah, and he was in USA Today. It was in a PBS documentary. I mean, he was in the newspaper all the time. So it was still exciting, but it was kind of like, oh yeah, there it is. There he is again. And then after the fountain, other opportunities then were offered. And this is a bench that we did with visiting artist Angelica Pozzo, a ceramic artist from Cleveland. And it is a bench that is in a memorial garden, in a veterans memorial garden in Athens. So when they asked us to do this, it was like, we didn't hesitate, but it's like, well, you know what we look like, right? Like, it's gonna be funky, and they're like, we want that, that's what Athens looks like. Cool, okay. So this is our Veterans Memorial Garden and hospice and visiting nurses place to sit and think. So the flowers have expanded, meeting customer needs and desires. And at one point, brides were walking down the aisle with a passion flower. And so this is a response to that. So these are made out of watercolor paper, and they're very safe, and they're just, it's so much fun. And wedding cakes have had these stuck in them and airbrushed, and I don't know, it's so cool. My nephew's wife's dad is he makes, he did the MTV Awards one year, and he does pewter and molding. Anyway, he offered to do this and make the first casting of a passion flower piece of jewelry. So if you can imagine all the networking possibilities in this room of who you know and what talents and extended talents there are, it's extraordinary. So he offered to do this, and so now there's a miniature little passion flower that you can wear. It became part of a mural project, quilt bark project in Athens. And then listening to customers who really liked the idea, but the colors were just a little too wild, we said, well, what do you want them for? And it was putting them in the garden, and we thought, well, we could also match stainless steel appliance stuff, right? So these are Carolyn's designs, but they're laser cut, and they send the pieces and we build them, and our guys don't have to touch them again. They're just profit, which is cool. So we have different kinds of products. So if we could do that with Carolyn's flower, what else is possible? You know, and as we're building and exploring the flower, other opportunities emerged as well. This is David Dewey, appliances. These are his first drawings that we did, that I experienced with him. We sat down and he immediately started drawing things from home. And I just had to get up and walk out of the room. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, a dancing refrigerator, like what is that? And a washer dryer, this is awesome. And my friend Kate Gorman saw them and fell in love with them too. And she came down and did a visiting artist. She's a quilter. And I invited her because I like her and I like hanging out with her, but I also wanted to learn how to sew. So Kate fell in love with David's drawings, and we made a quilt out of pajamas and clothes that you would wear at home. Well, David is this awesome guy who he has, with his hands, he can hold a pen, absolutely, but it's really a challenge for him to do some of the work that was there at the sheltered workshop. So he didn't really have a lot of employment opportunities. So he came and we hung out for hours and just drew. And the more he drew and the more his artwork it grew and became beautiful and different things, the more he emerged into himself. He changed his name to Pepe Le Doux. And he wore a beret, and then the sunglasses came on, and he's the artist, man. He's the go-to guy. And so I saw this man go from, a sweet being into a confident artist, willing and interesting, wanting to talk to people about his work. It was just thrilling. And I thought, well, wow, what's better than that? And we're having fun doing this. And so here's some of David's work translated to different items. The fish, the grumpy fish, is a slab sculpture, glazed. Howling Wolf is a silver pin, and then the Happy Bee was used in a printed medium on making a greeting card. So it turns out that, all of us are creative beings. We have the ability to do amazing things once we give ourselves permission. And it just so happens that the people that we serve could even have a toehold up on us. I don't know what, there's just a beauty and a magic to the imaginations of the people that we serve. And Carden Smith, as an example, I worked with Carden for about 2 years, and he really associated painting, like painting a house or a room, and with speed as being successful. So he would paint things solid colors as fast as he could, which is a dangerous thing to do in an art studio, because So, and I was just like, what am I gonna do with this guy? I don't know. He's so strong and he's young and he has all this energy. And his dad said, well, he really loves architecture. I said, I didn't know that. And so we brought in blueprints and magazines, and he sat down, and now he works on a painting for 2 to 4 weeks. Wow. And he'll work on 5 to 6, 10 paintings at a time. And they're absolutely so beautiful. And he's like totally zenned out, and he's a completely different being. But we had to find what it was that was his thing. And so here's a floor plan of a house, and then a strawberry chalet is the other. So my friend Alexis Reinhardt, another artist, is absolutely taken with Smokey Robinson. It's her thing, right? And so for years she would talk about Smokey obsessively. And then we asked, she's like, well, hey, Alex, could you write about Smokey? Would you do that? And so she's just started writing about Smokey. She's been writing for years. And so if you take that and add it to other things, you can make it's a beautiful texture. And I really believe that the spirit of the person, when you're making something, it translates into the artwork. I truly believe that. So her love for Smokey is evident in the work that she does. So this big cabinet was garbage and an old rickety filing cabinet, So it went from the curb to the gallery because of the talent of the people that we Here we are in Chile doing some painting collages, and Jonathan Salzman, just a brilliant illustrator of animals. He loves animals, and he's just lovely. And he doesn't like to paint. But he doesn't have to. He's the illustrator. Other people like to paint. So the other aspect of the way that we work is that everybody works together, and we support each other, and we're interdependent in the process. No, Freddie, man. There's Freddie. And so as you grow, and if you invite the arts into your programming and what you do, little things kind of bubble to the surface. And here we had the art, we had the artists, and then the idea of combining the two. So you can get a feeling for who's making the art in the piece. There's Carolyn and her flowers. So this is just a printout from the copier, or the laser printer. Carolyn's cut out, and she's sitting on top of a little block of wood, and then rephotographed. But it's kind of a trick. It looks tricky. And using the copier and photographing and how to interact. And often when I talk to people, because I work with adults mostly, as we work probably about 90% or more, like, well, will this work with children? It's like, it'll work with children, because the children are brilliant. They're natural artists and scientists. And we've also done this work in prisons, with hospice, VA hospitals. It's because we're all the same. We all want to connect, and we're creative beings. And so as this art develops, as an agency, you can use this art to demonstrate what it is that you do. When we talk about ability, we talk about acceptance, but just go do it. And when you finish making something, there's your proof. You don't have to have long-winded conversations about how we need to include everybody in community. Just start doing it and invite your community to work with you. And this is simple stuff. This is all materials that you already have. A copier, I'm sure, even your phone has a camera. So you don't have to invest $100,000 to get going. You just need a pen and a piece of paper. And then use your office materials, become really good friends with the office administrator. So, you can have people come up and Xerox their face, and it's okay. And you can lay hands on the copier. So this is Mary Alice. This is a piece by Mary Alice that we did together. And I just love her mark making. It's just absolutely beautiful. And she laid her hand on the Xerox machine, And I feel like this piece is like a window into seeing her. Yeah, art's really kind of magical. And as we started making these cutouts and collages, we partnered with Ohio University in their aesthetics technology lab, and they printed work for us. And this is a 17-foot photo. And I can't do that by myself, you know, and I didn't even think of that until they offered that service. And now it's hanging in our local mall, along with some collages done by the individuals. So you never know who you're going to work with when you have an open studio. So going about your business, it's really exciting when the phone rings because you don't know who's going to be on the other end. And in this case, it was a group of Tibetan monks. They were doing a North American tour, going to different universities, and they were coming to Ohio University, and they asked if they could do a residency with the Patchwork artists. And it's like, absolutely, you know, come on in, that's great. And it was probably 10 minutes before they walked through the door, and I was like, what are we gonna do? I don't know what we're gonna do with these guys. The only thing I really know are those prayer flags. And then we had a big stack of pillowcases. I said, ooh, we can make giant prayer flags. Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, so we got all these pillowcases out. And then I thought, oh my God, am I gonna totally offend these guys right off the bat? Like, is that what's gonna happen? And it turns out that there's sacred joy, and there's this involvement with really paying attention to joy and humor. And these guys thought it was hilarious. And we didn't have the same language, but everybody sat down at the table and just started collaborating. So there's Jim and these Tibetan monks, and Jim has a speech pattern that most people who don't know him can't fully understand him. So everybody communicated visually with the work that was being done. And it was just a beautiful thing to see unfold. And here's Smokey Robinson as a monk. Great. And a baby monk. And then the monks were doing what they came to do in the first place for Athens, and that was to build a sand mandala. And that is basically a physical prayer, hoping for peace and tranquility in the world. And it's made with little bits of sand, and it's painted. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And Harry came up and asked the monks, he said, teach me how to do this. And they set him up with a table and David Dewey. And so they got to learn this ancient process with these monks. And then the head monk, who had these white scarves that had been blessed by the Dalai Lama, had a ceremony and a blessing. It's like, how do you plan for that? You can't. It's just, how it unfolds is just extraordinary. And the idea of this mandala is then it's destroyed, and bits of the sand is handed out to who's there, and then we walked it down to the river, and it went into the river. The idea that it continues out into the world, and as it's doing right now, with this story sharing it with you. So this was just definitely a highlight of my career working with these monks. Here's Jim Gillespie's version of the monks. Oh, he's so funny. And they ended up using this as a t-shirt design and in their posters for the rest of their tour. These guys are hilarious. Look at those feet. I know, it's so good. And look at that. They're, you know, so this was Jason and Mary Alice did the background on this yak, and then one of the monks drew that yak with a Sharpie on a pillowcase. I know. It's just an extraordinary world. So the art is also responsive to individuals, because that's how we make art. It's one person at a time making marks on a paper in some way. And that's what's really beautiful about inviting the arts into programming, because it's not one answer. It's not it's like this is the way it's done and everybody has to respond to the thing. It's that we're going to respond to the individuals. So here we have Serena, and she experiences CP, and her mark making naturally is kind of wild, right? And she did that for a really long time. And in the studio, we then put weight bands on her wrists, and there was just a little bit of resistance. And when that happened, she was able to control with more ease, and first she could draw frogs and flowers and whatever she wanted to do. And I thought the first day that happened, I thought she was going to absolutely jump out of her chair. She was so excited, and it changed her life. You know, she became a different kind of recognizable artist in the studio. And her work was just absolutely beautiful. So the backgrounds would be done without the bands, and then she would do the foregrounds with the bands. And that's really cool. That's really cool. And so use that. Yes, absolutely. You know, and her story and her success can be somebody else's success that you care for and support. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. This is Serena's flowers on top of Nancy's polka dots. And so an extension of this is there's a lot of interest in employment and making money. And you know, being a straight art studio, that's totally a way to go. You can sell the fine art, and that can be somebody's job, and that's cool. You can also have a product line. And with the products that we like to design, it's constantly just a response to the talents that's already in the room. I'm not asking anybody to do anything they don't already do. It's my job as the artist to design a product that the individuals will just naturally make, right? So here's Serena's drawing movement. It's like, okay, then that is the background of this reindeer. David Dewey drew the reindeer, and Mindy likes to draw suns. So, bam, we have suns on this beautiful reindeer. And then one day David Dewey started painting bullseyes on the deer. I know, it was hunting season. I think they would be very popular here in Alaska. So here you have a plug. And the thing is that you can sit in your room, in your living room, in your office, and you can just start gazing around, and you, believe me, you can redesign every single object in a better way, in a more colorful and celebratory way, no matter what you do. So it's really limitless as to what you can do with your artists. And then you can go and sell stuff and go to festivals and shows and come to Alaska, or you guys could go to Ohio and talk about it. It's amazing. So these are some of the products of the sublimation process. And these are that you just like photograph the artwork, and then you can, it's a heat process that translates it to different products. And so you can do mass production. Because one of the things that I found out was that the artists didn't really want to do, most of them who were making the art didn't really want to do production work. And artists don't want to. Artists want to see what's new, what's next. They want the next best thing. But some people do like to do production. So it's having lots of different opportunity. But this is like you can make 500 tiles of the starving wolf and not bother your artists, right? To get it out there. And then you can have a store. This is Passionworks store in Athens, Ohio. And so there is a storefront, and then behind the storefront is the studio. So the customers can come in and shop, go to the gallery, and then meet the artists if they're in there. So we've been sharing this method of working for quite a while, and studios are just exploding all over. And they're basically building in their own vision through the talents of the people that they serve. And this is in Columbus, Ohio, Goodwill Art Studio. They did a huge reconstruction on their building, and they designed the building so that the art studio was in the front and was the highlight and the key to basically the first thing that any visitor would see. So it's demonstrating, again, the talents and just what's possible, given the opportunity to the people that we serve. These are some of their products. They have dish towels, bags, pins, purse holders. These are you hang them from the table so that you can hang your purse down. You can make anything. It's just amazing. Can Do Studio in Findlay, Ohio. They have taken working with the aluminum plates. They make earrings, butterflies, magnets, all different kinds of smaller objects with this metal. And they have a store as well. And they also, they're known as Flag City. That's where they have been making American flags for many, many years. And they designed this barn star out of the aluminum. And And so I really see that the more we have, the more studios, the more examples of success, the stronger every one of these studios become. And we share with each other, and in Ohio, we meet quarterly, and we talk about ideas and challenges, but we support each other. And ultimately, the most important thing is to serve the people that we've agreed to serve, and we love to serve the best we can. So it's not a competition, it's a interdependence and a celebratory kind of existence with each other. And that's where I love being, is sharing ideas. Here's Open Door Studio in Columbus, and they started in a studio that you would not believe how small it was. It was just, oh my gosh. It was like that table to this wall. I mean, it was so small, but you walked in and you just felt the love. And now they are in an old mechanic's shop with bay doors. It's huge, maybe a little smaller than this room. So they expanded as their needs grew. Their parent organization responded to their needs, and they're just doing fantastic work. Our Town Studios in Delaware, it's a day program, and the first thing they did was paint and add color, and then put the artwork of the individuals everywhere. Everywhere. You can't go anywhere without seeing the beauty. They're so funny. And so, you know, we share the one universal thing about what we do is that there are people with disabilities everywhere, right? I mean, every community, city, town, family, there's a connection to disability. And this, in Santiago, Flor de Arte is a studio that's developed out of an organization that serves orphans and school children with disabilities. And so we've been working down there for about 7 years. And this guy, oh my God, look at his drawings, aren't they great? And they've taken this idea and they've partnered with other businesses. And, right? So as you grow, you don't have to make the glasses, you don't have to manufacture them, you just need a partnership. You just need a relationship. And you're serving basically, your mission gets to help drive the sales of who you partner with. And it's a great relationship to partner with businesses that you can trust and you want to be friendly with. And they have a jewelry line, keychains. This is a piece of art, and the woman, the director of this studio, there was her neighbor who lived in the apartment above hers, was a stitcher, and so she asked her, I was like, hey, would you like to make something? And then her neighbor came up with this idea, and then she was hired to make these pieces. That's kind of cool, man. So here's some of their product line. And again, the kids are not represented by their disability, they're represented by their spirit. And the marketing department for this agency is so thrilled because it's way more fun to do it through the spirit and the lightness of the vision of the kids. Here are some of the kids. And so we're drawing and getting to know each other and whatnot. And so with their drawings, then you can make all kinds of things. This is a linen placemat that we've stitched the drawings into. So it can be really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated at all. And volunteers could be doing this for you all the you wouldn't believe who wants to help. There are so many people. And so as the studio has grown, they've attracted artists to be employed and to have their internships and to volunteer. And one of the things, one of the girls at within the center, there's a house that houses about 150 young people with pretty severe disabilities. And one of the artists was working with her on a painting. And she asked if it was nighttime or daytime, and the girl said it was nighttime. And she said, oh, are there stars in the sky? And she didn't know what the stars looked like because she had never been outside at night. Yeah. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in the world. And not everybody is where you guys are. And so another thing is outreach. Well, this artist went back to the orphanage at night, and the two of them sat outside and looked at the stars. And great, because making art, we talk a lot about how it's about expression, but really it's about investigating experience. That if you have, Carolyn drawing flowers, then you know what, let's go to a garden. Let's go to a garden and bring our pad and sit down and really look at flowers. So our experiences become richer, and we have more reason to investigate the world. So knowing that story, Danny, who was the artist in residence here, she said, let's get out of the building and let's make art in the community. So we did a project in Valparaiso in their cultural center, and she set up a studio in their cultural center, and we just started making work. And people came in and volunteered, painted, silkscreened, and we made these huge quilts in 2 days. It was so much fun. And then we did the same thing at the National Library. She set up the studio, we just started making work. It was painting in the National Library. Nobody's gonna ask you to come in and paint, so it's amazing what happens when you ask. So the collaborative process involves many people in one piece. So this painting was done by everybody at the base of this picture, and it was a commission by a man who was going to ask his girlfriend to marry him. I know, total big points for that guy. And he just asked if he would paint a painting about love. So everybody who involved themselves in this painting was thinking about love, and Jim Gillespie, he drew pictures of his girlfriend, David Dewey did hearts, and Serena did her flower, and Smokey Robinson's in there, you can see, of course. And so it's a collaboration of skills and talents. People can do, it's anything that people do, right? And people change and grow as artists because with experience, you learn more about what you can do. This young woman, we just put gardening gloves and rubber gloves on her arms, and she used her arms as paintbrushes, like that, and she was phenomenal. This guy was a toilet brush man, and he was just fabulous. He got into the newspaper and with his toilet brush, so he was the polka dot guy. And this young woman, she just loved painting. Her whole mood and being changed when she was painting. And this is a drawing by Kathy, a friend of another woman in this facility. And so we incorporated all of these talents into making a new piece. And so everybody was involved again, just like the love painting. And so Kathy did a little drawing, and that flower was about 2 inches wide, and then we enlarged it with a overhead projector, and then cut it out of fabric and made this 3-foot bird, which Kathy recognized immediately when she came in to come make art. It's like, of course, that's mine. I did that. And then they named their studio. Everybody loved the bird. The studio's name organically grew from experience, and so then they had the logo, the important logo. So would you guys like to take a break? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. How about like a 10-minute? 10, 15? 10? 10. 15.